Full Service Radio is proudly supported and hosted by Simplecast, the easiest way for a podcast creator to publish and distribute audio on the internet. For more information, visit simplecast.com. Recorded live from the lobby of the Line Hotel in Adams Morgan, Washington, D.C.
Welcome to Black Girl Missing, a podcast that covers stories of Black girls who were reported missing when they were under the age of 18. We are exercising caution and social distancing by reporting for you from our homes in DC and the Jersey Shore. This podcast is brought to you by Full Service Radio. Due to the sensitive and sometimes graphic nature of these cases, we advise listeners to use caution when listening. Black Girl Missing is supported in part by New Voices for Reproductive Justice. New Voices for Reproductive Justice is a social change organization dedicated to the health and well-being of Black women, femmes, and girls. I am Nikki.
I'm Asa.
Feminista Jones is out today.
Yep, technical difficulties, but that should be solved by the next episode.
Absolutely.
So, we open each show reviewing cases of girls who are currently missing that we call the Aisha Alert. We encourage you to pay close attention, check our social media, and help us help the families who are still seeking answers and long for their loved ones' safe return. We'd like to note that we create these lists of currently missing Black girls in real time, so by the time episodes are released, there may have been changes. We will have information on each case posted on our social media channels so that you can stay updated. Talia Jones is 6 years old from San Pedro, California. Talia has been missing since June 17th of 2019 and may be in the company of her mother, Melinda Davis, who is 43, a Black woman, 5 foot 1 inch tall, and weighs 120 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. They are currently believed to be in the Los Angeles area. At the time she went missing, Talia was described as having brown hair and eyes. When she went missing, she was 3 feet 8 inches tall, weighed 45 pounds, and had a large gap in her 2 front teeth. Anyone with information on the case was urged to call the Los Angeles Police Department at 213-928-8223. Danielle Milligan is 14 years old from Austin, Texas. Danielle vanished from Austin on March 27th and hasn't been seen since. She's described as a Black female with black hair and brown eyes. Danielle is 5'5" and 160 pounds. If you have information about Danielle Milligan, you are urged to contact the Travis County Sheriff's Office at 512-974-0845. Imani Coley is 16 years old from West Brighton, New York. She was last seen at her Barker Street home around 9 a.m. on Tuesday, April 14th. Imani is described as approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall and 108 pounds, with brown eyes and black hair. She was last seen wearing a blue denim jacket and gray pants. Anyone with information on where Imani may be is asked to call the NYPD's Crime Stopper hotline at 1-800-577-TIPS. That is 1-800-577-8477.
All right. Hopefully each of these girls turns up quickly, unscathed, and without any issue.
Yes.
Today, we are going to talk about a case that left me with a lot of questions. So I'm just going to dive right in and we'll see where it takes us. We've spoken a bit on the show about cases that aren't always so clear-cut because of a lack of detail or like Slapshod investigating, to take Ace's word away from her. This actually might be one of those cases. 26-year-old Adrionna Williams was supposed to be on her way to work at 7 p.m. on Sunday, June 14th, 2015, where she was a security guard at Ebenezer Towers in Pittsburgh. It's a senior citizen apartment complex. Instead, at 7:05 p.m., her family called police and reported her 3-year-old daughter, Adrionna, missing. Just a very short time later, 40 minutes, Adriana's body was found 2.5 miles from her grandmother's home in a ravine by a passerby who was walking their dog. Adriana's official cause of death was asphyxiation.
Okay, quick question.
Yes.
Was Adrienne on her way to work at 7, or was she just supposed to be on her way to work at 7?
Well, we don't know. But it looks she was supposed to be on her way. She was supposed to be leaving the house at 7 to get to work. But what's being said is that Adrienne is the cause of death of Adriana. But it's based on a lot of circumstantial evidence. So we're going to go through some of that.
Okay.
Now, police say that Adrienne was upset before she left for work because she had to help Adriana clean herself after using the bathroom. But was that motive to kill her own child? Probably not.
No.
Now, in the month before Adriana's death, Adrienne suffered a crushing breakup after her boyfriend rejected her advances to be more serious. She went to his home and she broke in and she stole a few items that she purchased for his family. Christmas gifts for his daughter, a game console she bought him, things like that. He decided not to pursue charges since she was planning on applying for the police academy in Pittsburgh, and that could affect her future directly. Now, he was also planning on pursuing a future with the police force and supported Adrienne up until she was charged with murder, tampering with evidence, and abuse of a corpse that July. She was formally charged July 7th, 2015. So if she passed June 14th, this is about a month later when she was finally charged with her daughter's disappearance and murder. Now, prior to being arrested in connection with Adriana's murder, Adrienne checked herself into Western Psychiatric Institute and Clinic of UPMC for suicidal ideation.
Quick question on that.
Yes.
Was anything available as to whether the doctors said that she was mentally sound or not?
So there's no information on that due to that would be a HIPAA violation.
Right.
However, during her trial, there was a forensic psychiatric professional who said that Adrienne probably had a host of mental health issues.
Okay, because that whole month before,
right? That
thing,
could be fishy.
Exactly.
But if you think about it, the month before Adriana went missing, she had a lot of upheaval in her life. Breakups can be very difficult for some people.
True.
She met her boyfriend on Instagram. They had a very romantic yet casual relationship. They got very close very quickly. She called him her best friend. He called her his best friend. They took the test to get into police academy together. They were very close. So when she said, "Let's take this to the next level," and he was like, "Nah."
Yeah, that sounds devastating.
Yeah, it was devastating for her. And I'm of course not excusing any type of nefarious behavior that she may have exhibited. Right. I can understand how a situation like that could be very difficult for her to go through. Now, on that Tuesday, July 7th, she was formally charged with killing her 3-year-old daughter after police found quite a bit of circumstantial evidence. One being there were those vinyl covered colorful paper clips. They were found near Adriana's body in the ravine. And the same paper clips were found in Adrienne's Toyota. That could mean something. That could mean nothing. Right. They are very common paper clips. I have like 30 of them on my desk right now.
Babies.
And, but also this is a little bit more significant. There were splotches of mud inside her car that matched the mud near the ravine. Now,
Mm.
anyone who's ever watched like a forensic show, whether it's dramatized or not, knows that dirt and water are both very significant keys that can be traced. So if you have water from a certain body of water, like a lagoon or a creek or a river, you can trace that water back based on the organisms that are in it. Same thing goes for dirt. I can test sand from, say, Rockaway Beach in Long Island or Myrtle Beach or Ocean City, Maryland, and all of those sands are going to be a little bit different.
Right.
And there's a lot of things that are specific to just those pieces of matter. So that's how they trace the mud in her car back to the mud found in the ravine that's 2.5 miles away from her mother's house.
Right. And that could be something or nothing, because I don't know if this is like a ravine that people walk by regularly. We don't know like her normal patterns of, getting out. So that's it's kind of like the paperclips thing.
Could be something, could be nothing. And this particular ravine is it's like behind an elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the school that Adrionna attended, but it is an elementary school, and it's in a neighborhood where there's lots of children, lots of families. People do walk this trail quite frequently.
Okay.
That was also curious to me because at 7:00 on a warm Sunday afternoon, shouldn't people be out there?
Yeah.
This is June. This is June. It's nice outside. And Sunday evening, it's 7:00 is dinner time for a lot of people, but it's not dinner time for everybody.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Unless, I don't. That is curious.
Yeah, and I felt it odd that there was no actual visual witnesses.
And if it's near an elementary school, like it's right behind an elementary school.
In June, school is out.
In June, but it's 2015, so every school has cameras around it.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
That matters too. I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
So also, there was some of Adriana's DNA was found on Adrian's shirt. I didn't pay as much attention to that particular point because
that's her mom.
She's 3. So she might throw up, she might drool, she might get food crumbs, whatever kind of bodily fluid. I mean, it happens when you have a toddler. It's normal. But however, in the details, there was some what forensic investigators called crusted material that turned out to be remnants of watermelon. And apparently, when Adrionna, the last thing she was seen eating was actually a piece of watermelon. Again, that could be something and that could be nothing. She could have just, kids manage to get whatever they're eating all over the place.
Oh, it's
kind of gross.
Gross. It's curious. I don't know.
Yeah. So all of these things, that's why I said they're circumstantial. A lot of them could be something, could be nothing. So this is where it gets even more curious. Cell phone tracking records and surveillance videos from people's their home surveillance systems showed that Adrian drove towards the ravine instead of driving to work on Penn Lincoln Parkway like she usually did. Now that's curious because Penn Lincoln Parkway is nowhere near that ravine. If you are trying to get on that parkway and drive to work, it was going to take her a minute to get there. First of all, she didn't live very close to her job. Second of all, Penn Lincoln Parkway is a completely different direction from the ravine. She had to leave her mother's house, drive southeast to get to the ravine. The Penn Lincoln Parkway is southwest of her mother, or the entrance to get on the parkway is southwest. So she went a completely separate direction to get to the ravine. Now, on these home surveillance cameras, they see a car that matches the description of Adrian's car. And when investigators looked at her cell phone location records, her phone was seen moving from tower to tower towards the ravine, not towards the parkway. Very curious. Very strange.
Extremely.
So as Adrienne drove towards this ravine, her phone is going further and further away from the parkway. So that tells you she wasn't going towards her job. And then she never showed up at work because apparently she got a phone call that said her daughter was missing. And now all of a sudden it's a problem. And she's a grieving mother.
Right.
But again, she was found 40 minutes later. My question is, where was Adrienne in the time between if she did this, in the time between Adriana going missing and Adrienne getting a phone call saying, come back because the baby's missing? Where were you?
Right. So
did you act like you were going to go to work? Like, did you get on the parkway?
So quick question, because I didn't think we covered this. Was Adrienne and Adriana living with Adriana's grandmother?
No. She had recently moved out after her nasty breakup the month before. So let's go all the way back. Adrienne's birthday is in April.
Okay.
She had just turned 26. After her birthday, she's thinking, I have this great relationship and it's going really well. Let's bump it up a notch. That doesn't happen. He breaks up with her instead. She breaks into his house, steals a bunch of stuff, is charged with burglary.
Oh.
He says no, drop the charges because she's trying to be a cop. I don't want to interfere. Then she moves out of her mother's home. So in between her burglary charge and the death of Adrienne moved out of her mother's house and was living somewhere else. It was just a couple miles away. Okay. So when she would go to work, she would drop Adriana off with her mom. And in her mom's home, she had a couple other siblings, and then there were some cousins who lived there also.
Gotcha.
Now, when police were investigating Adriana's belongings, they found a note that she wrote in a notebook that kind of read like a journal entry, in which she stated, I hate doing this on my own. I've been struggling hard. However, Adrienne's family contests her note by sounding off on social media following her arraignment. Her sister stated, how are you struggling when you really didn't take care of her? We had her. You only had her at night.
Oh.
Okay. All right. That matters. That matters for your sisters to come forward and say, you didn't really take care of her. She was always with us and you only had her at night. Her brother, Adrienne's brother, echoed his sister's feelings by saying that Adrienne wasn't struggling and that Adriana was with them 7 days a week. He said the only time Adriana left the grandmother's house is when Adrienne came to get her at night.
Okay.
So it makes me wonder. It takes me back to her potential mental health issues.
Yeah, because struggling could mean a lot of. She could be struggling with a lot of different things. Right. She didn't specify.
Right. Just because she doesn't appear to be outwardly struggling doesn't mean that she's not struggling internally, or that the task at hand might be too much for her. It may not be too much for her entire family who's working together to take care of a child. But for her by herself, it may be too much. We don't know. And all we can really do is speculate. But it made me think about everything she had endured over the last couple of months. I got my stuff together. I'm, got this great boyfriend. Now I don't got this great boyfriend. Now I got this potential burglary charge on my record. I don't want that because she was actually in school at the time for criminal justice. Oh. So I'm in school. I have a job. I have a relationship. Now I don't have a relationship, but now I have a potential criminal charge. I'm just moving out of my mom's house, trying to figure myself out. That could have been very heavy for her. Now, during her trial, forensic psychologist Dr. Alice Applegate testified that after interviewing Adrionna Williams, she said that she showed signs of narcissistic and paranoid personality traits, and that she had a history of agitated depression. And she said that she suffered from a moderately severe mental disorder. And that could mean a lot of things because we're not doctors, and we're not reading her chart, but it says that there are some issues there. There are some issues, and it leaves us to wonder about if she did this. Like, she was found guilty, so that we'll say she did this. When she killed Adrionna,
was she of sound mind?
Right. Was she of sound mind? And was her thought that she was doing Adrionna a favor? Because I've seen a lot of people who take their children's lives, their thought process, no matter how skewed it is, they say, oh, well, I didn't want them to suffer.
Right. Yeah.
And while that doesn't make sense to me, I understand their logic behind why they would think killing my child is going to take away any type of stress I could possibly inflict on their life. So I'm going to remove them from that so that they don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Now, Adrionna had a paternal grandmother who was in her life, Sonia Crosby, and she stated that her son Jaron, who was Adriana's father, asked her to watch Adrian because he feared that his daughter wasn't safe. However, we always go back to talking about documentation. There was no formal documentation of him saying this. So I'm trying to think of every angle. He could have said that.
Yeah.
Or Sonia Crosby could have said that to further vilify Adrian because she was upset about what happened to her granddaughter.
Yeah. I can definitely see both.
Yeah, for sure. Now, also, Jaron wasn't present for Adriana's death or Adrian's arrest, as he was incarcerated at the time. Now, Jaron's presence in Adriana's life was a little bit spotty and usually this would not matter to me, but Jaron has a pretty active criminal record. And it makes me curious to Adrian's general personality and her general effect. If psychologists are saying she has mental disorders and she has some emotional issues, are her decision-making skills good enough? Because if you have such a strong interest in criminal justice and policing, what were you doing with a man who has a chronic pattern of serious criminal charges ranging from assault, theft, weapons possessions, drug possession and distribution, and the like? And his criminal record is very steady from the time he turned 18 until he was 25. And then he was incarcerated during this time. And I wonder how he feels. Like, do you feel guilty because you were in jail and you could have actually helped your daughter, but you weren't there?
It's like the only thing I could think of as an explanation for both her being with and having a kid with someone with such a full rap sheet, and then also going into criminal justice, is there is actually a sexual philia that has to do with an attraction to criminals and the danger surrounding it and all of that. That's the only thing I could think of that would go past, well, she's just not thinking clearly, doesn't have really good judgment.
And also, something that I noticed was, now in the news during her trial, her defense attorney, Milton Rayford, he kept mentioning how the evidence was circumstantial and how he was curious about how exactly Adriana died because the prosecution would not disclose that information. The prosecution, it's weird, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. So the prosecution did not do a good job of explaining exactly how and where Adrionna was asphyxiated, where she was strangled. It doesn't say if, there was stress marks on her neck. It doesn't say if something was placed over her face, or maybe she choked on food. Maybe it was an accident. Maybe she choked on watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things that could happen there that people aren't necessarily thinking about.
Right, because that was one of the thoughts that I had, because I was thinking it would come up later on.
Yeah.
Because it didn't. All it said was asphyxiation. So that's what if this was an accident and Adrian got scared and thought, well, maybe I can make it look like a kidnapping. I didn't mean to do it. Something along those lines. Still not good.
Right.
But it would change.
There's so many angles. One thing I thought of was, if I'm trying to be a police officer, I'm trying to get to the police academy, I'm a security guard, I like my job, I'm trying to stay in law enforcement somehow, and I don't want to jeopardize that this accidental thing may have happened to my daughter, and I'm trying to keep my nose clean. And Black people are historically afraid of the police. I can't call the police and tell them that this happened, because now I'm going to get in trouble and I'm going to ruin my future.
Because you're definitely not going to get sympathy as a Black mother that kills her child. No.
Not, especially not a young one. She's 26.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
There's that angle. There is also, what if something happened in the home and Adrian said, well, this is my kid, so I'll just take responsibility for what's about to happen. There's a lot of different angles. But one thing that kind of stuck out for me was, if this is a single mom, she doesn't have much money, where'd she get this attorney from? Milton Rayford is known in Allegheny County as being sort of a local Johnny Cochran. He's gifted and fiery, and he's got a good grip on justice. However, attorney Milton Rayford has been disbarred twice for fraud.
Oh,
what a twist, right?
All of them.
Yes. So he had been disbarred twice prior to handling Adrian's case. And during the time of his last disbarment, he actually founded a school primarily geared towards Black children, and had a Afrocentric curriculum. Now, this school, he used to be the headmaster of this school, and he had a special pre-K program that Adrionna was actually a part of. So that is how Adrian met attorney Rayford. He was the headmaster of her daughter's school.
Okay.
So when he defended her in court, he kind of tempered his fiery nature, because he was already on thin ice.
Oh,
because he had been disbarred twice. He doesn't want to push the issue. Okay. So throughout this entire court case, he didn't really put his foot on the gas when it came to defending Adrian. So Adrian was charged with tampering with evidence, abuse of a corpse, and murder in the third degree, which is it's intentional, but without it's intentional malice without premeditation.
Okay.
But my question is, when it said abuse of a corpse, it's telling me, was she dead before they got to the site where she left her? Because why are you saying it's abuse of a corpse?
Yeah.
That was very curious for me. So in looking at her attorney's part that he played in the case, currently Adrian is appealing her sentence. She was sentenced to the maximum 40 years in prison. Mm-hmm. She will be almost 50 when she gets out.
Wow. It just feels, how like we were talking about like the cases that move really quickly.
Yes.
And it was just like, but y'all really didn't take a lot of time on this. You didn't look at all the different avenues. This is feeling like that.
Yes. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of different twists and turns
Mhm.
that could be taken, and I feel like they missed out on investigating thoroughly.
Right.
She was arrested and charged in July of 2017, and she was sentenced and placed in prison for 40 years by January of, I'm sorry, she was charged 2015. She was the entire case was over and done with January 2017, which means you took a year and a half for her trial, not the investigation, the
Just
trial.
a trial. Okay. Yeah. There's
It
so
didn't
many
make a lot
things,
of sense to me.
especially on with everything that you presented was everything was circumstantial.
Yes.
And for some reason the way her family reacted is really sticking out to me because usually you will a family member gets accused of something heinous and it's either the family locks down and shuts up
Right.
or they will be defending their family member, and them harping on that note, it's just really weird to me. And I don't know if it speaks to they were fed up with her because maybe those paranoid and narcissistic traits were something they'd been dealing with from her for a long time. And it was just like, I'm tired of you just making stuff up and lying on us. But also it just feels strange.
Well, in learning about Adrienne Williams, I learned that when she was a child, she was taken away from her mother and placed in foster care. And she actually ran away from her foster home a couple times, which furthers my question about what type of family she actually comes from.
Okay.
Because her mother and her mother, her daughter's godmother, they all seem to want to distance themselves from the case.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious to why. Because if you didn't do anything wrong, why wouldn't your main concern be to lift up the memory of your slain goddaughter and your slain granddaughter? Mm-hmm. Why don't you want to talk about her? Jaren's mother has the urn that has Adriana's ashes in it. Oh. And she, talked about how loved her granddaughter was and how much people loved her, wanted to be around her, enjoyed her. But Adrienne's family seems to be kind of belligerent when it comes to this entire situation. Mm-hmm. And they don't sound like very understanding or loving people. And I'm not saying that you should be understanding or loving when your child commits murder.
Right. But they got themselves on the defensive, it feels like.
Yes.
As opposed to be defending their family member, it was them that they felt needed to be defended. And that was just strange to me.
It seemed odd that your first public statement is, she's lying, she wasn't stressed out. We did everything we could for that child.
Exactly.
You put yourself in the crosshairs and you didn't need to be because nobody was looking at you. Mm-hmm. It's very strange. It really is. And I had a difficult time with the story because she was so small. A 3-year-old, she just a baby. Mm-hmm. So regardless of who did what and what the details might be, what the truth might be, it's still a very small child who lost their life, and at the hands of her own family. And one thing that's sticking out to me is that it's important for us to recognize and know that abuse is happening in our homes. It's common for some of us to say things like, well, we don't abuse our kids. That's white people stuff. White people do that. That's not true. We absolutely abuse our children.
Right. And then you have to look at it from, there's different forms of abuse.
Yes.
So you may not be beating your kids, but the way you talk to them,
bingo,
the restrictions you put on them, sexual assault, like there's just so many different types to think about. And yeah.
And I don't think that we talk enough in our community about how various forms of abuse affect us long term, and they affect how we enter into other relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, and we end up sometimes pressing off our feelings from being abused onto the people around us. Now we can't have healthy relationships because something happened at home X amount of years ago, and we don't have the language to talk about it. We don't know what to say. We shun therapy. We don't go to counseling. We don't talk to professionals.
Or we've been gaslit our whole lives to believe that it's normal.
Right. This is just how I am. I hear that this is just how I am. And I used to do that.
Or this is just how families are. Like,
right. If there was something going on with me, I'd say, well, that's just how I am. This is just the way I am. And it's not true. And it doesn't have to be that way. So I'm hoping that some of the analysis during her trial was that Adrienne could really benefit from mental health counseling and things of that nature. And while prison is not a rehabilitative place, it's just not. I do hope that while she's there, she is getting some help. She's doing out her 40 years in a nearby prison, actually. She's at Muncie, which isn't very far away from where her mother lives. So I hope that somebody who cares about her is visiting her, or that she's at least able to talk to someone outside.
Yeah. I feel, this is hard. I feel like so many things could be avoided if we addressed elephants in the room.
Absolutely.
But we are so averse to the hard discussions that the way they manifest in our behaviors is detrimental to both ourselves and everyone else around us. And that's not to say like it's a definitive that she killed her daughter and is because of a mental health issue. Because, circumstantial evidence, I don't know for sure. Yes, she was found guilty, but there's things. But as on a larger, more broader scale, addressing some of these really hard truths would help a lot. And this goes to like a lot of the different cases we discuss. It's, parents not being able to talk to their teenage daughters and not knowing, what may be going on in their lives, if they're talking to older men, if they're sneaking out, stuff like that, because we are so averse to having the hard conversations that we're encouraging people hiding and doing things behind our back. And that's never good, especially for young children, because they don't have the emotional intelligence to understand the consequences of their actions.
Right. They also don't have the language. They don't know what words to use to say, hey, I have a thing that's happening, or I have a thing going on, or I feel a certain way. So being able to feel comfortable and healthy in our own skin is imperative to our progress as a people. And it's, this was quite a story. And I just hope that usually I walk away from these stories knowing if I believe who killed them or not. And this time I really don't. I'm not sure that Adrienne killed her. I'm really not, because there's too many unknowns. There's a lot of blank spots and a lot of questions that are unanswered. Like if the girl went missing at the same time that Adrienne left for work, where was this house full of people?
Yeah.
Because the grandmother was home, there were siblings in the house, and then there was like 2 cousins or something in the house. So you got 4 or 5 people in the house and nobody saw this 3-year-old little girl walk off?
Right. And if you did see her and she went with her mother, why would she be going with her mother if her mother's on her way to work?
Right. Nothing makes sense.
Nothing at all.
Yeah.
Well, this is Black Girl Missing Podcast. It's researched, written, and produced by us. It's a labor of love of 3 concerned Black women who want justice for missing Black girls. Today's episode was written by Nikki Irene and produced by the Full Service Radio team. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media, on Twitter at BLKGirlMissing, Facebook at Black Girl Missing Pod, Instagram at Black Girl Missing Podcast, and visit our website for more information about each case at blackgirlmissingpod.com. Please email us at blackgirlmissingpodcast@gmail.com with any tips, feedback, or names of girls you want us to look into.
All right. We'll see you all next week.
See you next week. Bye.
Bye.